Secretary Jeremy Hunt said he was grateful to the UAE government for resolving the issue
working-class Democrats, they're not for
speaking at a
entitlement
news
reform, they're not for
conference
small
earlier,
government,
a UAE
they're not for free
spokesman
trade,
said
so a lot of
Matthew Hedges was
traditional
being
Republican
granted
policy
clemency
positions
along with
would
hundreds
out the
of other
window if you
prisoners
did
to mark a
that.
national day.
I think
And
that
he
we can,
insisted
the Republican
that Mr.
Party
Hedges
can walk and
had
chew
been
gum at the same
spying
time.
for
Trump can consolidate these voters who have come into the Republican fold, but he can do a better job of winning back these suburban voters because, quite frankly, they should be voting Republican. President, we talked about this in the morning before Election Day. The economy is booming. Women's unemployment is the lowest it's been in 65 years, but yet suburban women have fled to the Democratic Party. There's no reason for that. A president as successful as Donald Trump and the economy should not be hemorrhaging suburban women. He's got to do a better job of trying to bring those people back to the fold.
Interesting stuff. Just got a couple seconds here. What do you expect on the Mueller answers?
Presidential pardon for Matt is the best news we could have received. Thank you, friends, family, media, academics,
I think there's a lot of hyperventilating about all the changes. It is
support.
absolutely normal for the President of the United States after an election to try and reshuffle his cabinet, move some people in, move some people out. There's no evidence whatsoever that he's going to interfere with the Mueller probe in any way, shape, or form.
It's taken me by surprise.
If he did, there's a check on it. It's called impeachment. The Democrats now control the House. They can impeach him if he tries to interfere with the Mueller probe. And I think everybody's getting a little bit worked up over nothing. The president is going to make some changes in his cabinet, and that's the
Do you know when you're going to see him?
Bush, after the midterm elections in 2006, replaced Rumsfeld with Bob Gates, and that's we're seeing as normal. So I don't see why everybody's so worked up about cabinet changes.
Good to get your analysis there. Thank you so much, Mark.
Everything else, but we're absolutely elated.
Fox alert on the deadliest wildfire
What was the last
in California's
time
history, and the
you
president
saw
got
Matthew,
first-hand
and
look at the
what did you
devastation
think
there
then?
on the ground.
Not
Wet weather moving in. Yeah, that wet weather is actually moving in, bringing a whole new set of problems. We're going to be live with the story coming up.
Also, I'm told to tell you, Julie, that the giant dance floor piano has returned as well.
Oh, thank God.
There we go.
Have you ever tapped
I'm
on
glad
that thing
that
before?
it won't be long till we take hello again.
Maybe 'tis the season.
So a huge relief, as you can imagine,
fun.
for the
Even for
family. But the
adults, you
Foreign
should try
Secretary
some.
Jeremy Hunt
Literally,
says the British
done it
government
now.
is still deeply
I'll admit,
perplexed by the case.
as an
Although he has
adult, I
today
did not do it. I
thanked
did it
the
with
UAE
children.
for
But
pardoning
what
Mr.
the heck?
Hedges.
I'll take you. It's right around the corner.
But we've seen
Right.
no evidence to support these
The U.S.
accusations
preparing for
against Matthew
long-term
Hedges.
stay in
But
Syria
today,
after defeating
what we want
ISIS,
to do is to
with a plan
thank
for the
them
troops
for
to
the fact
remain
that they
there
have
until the country is
reflected on the
stabilized.
strong
Now, the U.S.
representations that we've
is
made.
also requiring
We've made
Iranian
it very clear
commanded forces
for
must
a
leave
number of
Syria
months now that
before
we
its
see no basis in these
withdrawal.
allegations. They've reflected on that.
You
They've
cannot
taken the
have
action that
an
they
enduring
can,
defeat of ISIS
which means that Matthew
until you
Hedges
have
is going to be
fundamental
reunited with
change
his
in the
family.
Syrian regime
Jeremy Hunt. Well, earlier I
and
spoke to
fundamental
our
change in
correspondent
Iran's
Faraz
role
Kilani,
in
who's in Abu
Syria,
Dhabi.
which contributed greatly to
we
the
can
rise of
confirm
ISIS
that he
in the
was
first
freed
place in
like
2013,
1 hour
2014.
ago. Now what we hear that he will be on the flight to London at 10 local time, London time. So he might be arrived in London at 5 BST, let's say. There are two flights, we never know which one of them he will take, the Etihad or the BA, but we can confirm now that he will be heading to the UK at 10 London time tonight.
As you mentioned, stabilization.
And of course he has been released, but it has been made very clear by the government there that he is still guilty in their eyes of spying, and that this has been a pardon, an act of clemency.
Water going again.
Yes, exactly. This is what, let me tell you what happened today morning. First, when they have this press conference, they started in a private session. Off the record, they show us 7 minutes videos. It's a kind of clips, separate clips, no context, showing him in different sessions, admitting that he worked as a captain with the MI6, do this and that with collecting info not related to his job. This is off the record, as we said, and then when they start that, the official on-camera statement, they said that they said a lot of details about what happened, what he admitted, and the timing of things, all of that stuff, and then they said that he was included in this,
what is the official stance on
which was declared yesterday, and it's not a private one, to make it clear, it's not about him, because the pardon, I think it will include like 700 something prisoners here in the UAE.
Given the intervention of the British Foreign Secretary and the discussions that have had to happen, what do you think, if anything, will be the ongoing impact on the relationship between Britain and the UAE?
To fight Iranian
now, something happened over the last 10 days since he was
a legal authority that we do not have.
We heard a lot from the UK Foreign Office and
coming out of the
statements from here.
Attack on the
there was
United
a big problem. I interviewed the guy, the official person who today read the statement, and I sent you the clips later. He said that nothing wrong. But
so that is why we have
another note. We know that there's kind of sensitive issues regarding the UK policy conflict, the Gulf conflict, if you like.
Giving you an answer that may not have all the clarity that you're used to getting.
Well, Professor Clive Jones is Chair of Regional Security for the Middle East.
I want to move on to another topic in the interview between Chris Wallace and the President. Chris Wallace brought up the backlash that the President received on Veterans Day. The President said,
overjoyed, we really are.
I mean, it's wonderful news.
And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my colleagues here at Durham. Also, dare I say it more broadly, to the Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, for his efforts in bringing about this resolution, and equally to praise Danny, his wife, for her efforts over the last 6 months. I mean, she's been absolutely incredible.
I should have done that. Tell us about that, because even the Foreign Secretary praised her work.
We did a lot of she has been unstinted from the very beginning in trying to explore all avenues, reaching out to the Emiratis, reaching out to people who she thinks she can help, and she's done this much of the time on her own back. So she's an incredible woman, and that should be very proud of her.
I don't think the military or our vets are offended by the President not being there. And the reason is that he,
as I say, we are absolutely overwhelmed. I mean, I know it comes across as a bit of a cliche, but to hear the news this morning, dare I say, it's the best early Christmas present any of us could have.
And the support he has shown for the vets, we've never ever had a president post-World War II.
No, we still don't know. We still don't know whether he'll be put on a plane straight away, whether there'll be a period where paperwork has to be gone through to get him out. So we simply don't know at what point he'll be back in the UK.
He praised his wife. You've been in close contact throughout your last few days. How was she?
When he left Europe, the last thing he did in Europe,
well, I think many people would have heard her interview this morning on the BBC, and of course, for her, it means everything. I mean, as I say, she's campaigned so hard, so relentlessly, and she is a true champion of justice in this case.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to bring that up as well, that he was paying tribute to all Americans.
Let's return to Brexit, because it's a busy day, probably a busy week, possibly busy 2 weeks. It's all happening at Westminster. Let's join Ben Brown.
Thank you, sir. Starting off with a very busy day today, Rachel. Thank you. Theresa May been chairing a meeting of her cabinet this morning. Then she's going to be here at Parliament to address MPs, make a statement on her Brexit deal to members of Parliament, and trying to rally support the deal, really, the big sell, as it's been called, trying to get MPs behind her, or, she says, risk going back to square one. That is her argument if they vote against this deal. Well, MPs are likely to have that vote on December the 12th. Now, as I say, the Prime Minister has been holding a cabinet meeting at Downing Street ahead of that ominous statement. And speaking to BBC News this morning, the Brexit Secretary Stephen Barclay acknowledged that getting the deal through Parliament will be a challenge, but he said it's still the right course for the country. Opposition parties, the DUP and many of her own backbenchers have already said they will oppose the plan. Here's our political correspondent, Alex Forsyth.
William Argenis is back on that story.
Theresa May arrived yesterday with the ink fresh on the deal that'll take us out
Bill, what
of the
you see here is the United States sending a message to Mexico City. Unless you solve your problem on your southern border, you're going to have a problem with your northern neighbor. So what you see here is the United States is narrowing the amount of territory it has to defend in case indeed the migrant caravan tries to come to the border, have a sit-in, or literally run the border here at the port of entry in San Ysidro. The Mexicans have already helped out.
One that delivered on the result of the referendum and set us on course for a prosperous future.
Then they got these ones here they can bring in very quickly,
the withdrawal agreement deals with our exit.
Right over
There'll
here.
be a transition period after we leave in March, when not much changes until December 2020, so new arrangements can be worked out. It settles the divorce bill and guarantees the rights of EU and UK citizens living abroad, and it contains that controversial backstop plan to avoid a hard Irish border if there's no trade deal. Then there's a political declaration which talks about an ambitious future partnership and trade. Free movement will end, but the details haven't been agreed, and this document isn't legally binding. The Prime Minister and other EU leaders say this deal is the best it gets. Many disagree.
What she's created is something that satisfies very few people. So the chances of getting through this deal
Some of these people that are coming into with these caravans.
Here, all the opposition parties and many Conservative MPs have said they won't support this deal. So the challenge for the Prime Minister is to try to win them round for a crucial vote in a few weeks.
Well, Theresa May's new Brexit Secretary, Stephen Barclay, has been talking to the BBC today and acknowledging that getting the deal through Parliament will be tricky. He said it would be a challenge, but it was the right course for Britain.
Now, there are defenders here as
the fact is, this is the only deal on the table. It's taken 2 years of tough negotiation to get to this point. This is a deal that delivers on the referendum, and I think the biggest democratic vote in our history. It would be profoundly damaging to our democracy not to deliver on that vote. But we need to move forward in a way that maintains our security cooperation with Europe and protects jobs, protects those supply lines that is so important to our manufacturing and other industries.
That's the Brexit Secretary currently in Downing Street for that cabinet meeting. We're going to say goodbye to viewers on BBC Two and say they can watch more on Politics Live in just a moment.
They proudly served our country. Now they're looking to make change in Congress. With the midterms boosting the number of veterans on Capitol Hill, we're going to be talking to newly elected Florida Congressman.
Meanwhile, the shadow Brexit Secretary, Sir Keir Starmer, has been criticising the Prime Minister's deal
Looking forward to talking to him also in a moment here. A grim task in
This is
California.
a bad deal, a lot better than this could have been negotiated. The Prime Minister had started in a different place, and I do not accept that this is the best deal. It is a bad deal. And I'm not alone. You would say, when you're the opposition, you would say that, but look what's happening. MPs from all parties are saying this is not a good deal, and we can't pretend that it is. And that's why it's almost certainly not going to get through.
Sir Keir Starmer there. I'm joined here at Westminster now by the Labour MP, Stephen Malhotra, who's on the Brexit Committee, if we can call it, the Select Committee on leaving the European Union. First of all, how do you see this vote going on December the 12th?
Well, it certainly doesn't look like it's going to be good news for Theresa May, and the reason is obvious, that she started on this process not taking Parliament with her, not taking the country with her, and now she's embarking on a deal that is set to make her constituents worse off, my constituents worse off, and really, I have to take my hat off to her. She's achieved something that I didn't think was possible, uniting those who voted leave and those who voted remain against a deal that clearly is not in the interest of this country.
We're talking about making people worse off. Won't they be even worse off with no deal at all, a no-deal Brexit, which is what you would be risking by voting against this deal?
I don't believe that we are going to be risking that, but I do think that Parliament has to take some urgent steps now to make sure that we don't default to no deal in the absence of an agreement. There are alternatives, and I believe that the EU is already starting to factor that in, extending Article 50, and certainly also the option of a referendum where Remain and then Reform could also and should also be an option. But we have alternatives as well. We could think more deeply about whether we stay within the wider orbit of the European Union, something based on the European Economic Area and a customs union. That's a position that certainly has had support from and recommendations from our Select Committee as well. I think we have to be clear as well. This is a deal that's set to make our country worse off. This new research today shows that we could be £100 billion worse off by 2030. Theresa May hasn't yet brought forward her own economic impact assessment. She should come clean with the British people that this is a big risk for us to take.
But you think if you vote against the deal, you can renegotiate a better deal? Is that what you're saying? Because the EU have said that's not going to happen. They are not reopening this negotiation.
Well, I believe we've got to do our best, and I think we've got to try, because clearly this isn't going to be a deal that commands the support of Parliament, and I think it would be important, I think, as well, to test it with the support of the people.
But if the EU is saying no more negotiations, are you saying they're just bluffing, or what?
I don't believe that they are bluffing. I do think that they understand this is a very serious point for Britain, and Parliament has not been involved in the dialogue. Look, you've got to ask the question, why did the EU27 sign the agreement in one day in Brussels? The reason is that they've been brought along in the process, they've been negotiated with, they set out at the beginning giving the European Commission their negotiating objectives. Theresa May chose not to do that. She chose to sideline Parliament, sideline the country. That's catching up with her. We have a responsibility.
How's she sidelining Parliament if Parliament has the vote on December the 12th?
She has all the way through sidelined Parliament. And, the meaningful vote was something she didn't even agree to. I tabled the First Amendment.
You have a vote. On December the 12th, you have a vote.
And what also happens is that if that deal is not agreed, there's a process to go through, where Parliament can also talk about alternatives. Extending Article 50 may need to be one of those alternatives. A people's vote on whether we remain another alternative. But we also have to say if we are to leave at some point, then what's the destination that we reach? And is it going to be something that's going to be in the interest of our economy with least damage to British businesses and to our families' household incomes?
All right, thank you very much for being with us.
Nobody cares about race, religion,
Labour Member of Parliament. Well, let's get the latest from our chief political correspondent, Vicky Young, who's in Downing Street, where there's a meeting of the Cabinet at the moment. Vicky, bring us the latest.
Right, I mean, there's a long track record for that, right?
It's really going to be all about how they sell this deal. Now, it's interesting because some of those sitting on the cabinet table aren't totally sold themselves on what has been put before them. For now, though, they are sticking with it. But I think the plan is going to be to get out beyond Westminster, really to get beyond those 650 MPs in the House of Commons to try and make the case to people, to constituents, to say that this was the best deal Theresa May could get. It's a compromise. It was never going to be perfect for everybody, but it does end freedom of movement. It stops large payments to the EU, and she would say that it means that trade continues in a way that helps the car industry, for example, and others as well. So that is the plan. A social media blitz, a tour around the country for the Prime Minister, all to try and sell this deal before that crucial vote in December. Now, whether it works or not, of course, is another matter. The numbers don't look great at the moment, but I think a lot could change over that time, especially if MPs start to come under pressure from constituents to say that they really do back this idea and they want to deliver Brexit and move on. We'll have to see whether that does resonate.
So the Prime Minister embarking then, as you say, on this big sell. But of course, during the election, she was criticised for her style of campaigning. People said it was clunky, it was too stiff, didn't really work, didn't connect with the voters, and that's what she's got to do, or trying to do, connect with the voters, but also MPs as well, to try and get those who are against her to change their mind.
We know that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? She's already done a radio phone-in on the BBC last week. I mean, they obviously feel that this is the way to try and get that message across, but as you say, there is an issue there, isn't there? I think there are many people maybe who look at Theresa May and think, well, look, she's stuck with it, she, against the odds, has pursued this deal, and she's managed to get there in the end, while others have walked away from the table, and some will praise her for doing that, thinking, well, look, someone in the end has to sort this out. You can't all walk away from the cabinet. But I think there's a distinction between that and maybe some respect for her doing that and the deal itself. There will still be many people who don't think that this is worth it, that staying in the EU would be better, or leaving with a cleaner break, a more distant relationship from the EU is the way forward. So there are definitely risks for her in going ahead with this, and also speculation about some kind of debate, head-to-head debate with Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader. Speculation that she wants to do that based on the deal that she has got. Labour said they would relish the opportunity to do so. It would seem difficult to get that sorted out in time. You'll remember the ones during the general election took months and months of negotiations. Some would argue, why just those two people? Shouldn't other people be involved who've got different views on Brexit? It would be quite hard, I think, to get that up and running anytime soon.
All right, Vicky, thank you very much indeed. Vicky Young, our chief political correspondent in Downing Street. And I'm joined here now by John Springford, who's Deputy Director for the pro-EU think tank, the Centre for European Reform. Thank you very much for being with us, John. Do you think if this is voted down, the EU would renegotiate this deal?
No, I don't think they would renegotiate the withdrawal agreement very much. They might do some tinkering around the edges on the political declaration which accompanies the agreement, but in terms of doing a big transformation that would help Theresa May to get it through Parliament a second time, I think that's very unlikely.
So what what's your prediction? How do you see this going? I mean, most people are saying she can't get it through the Commons. The maths is stacked against her. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. She's obviously trying to get as many people on board as possible. The problem, as I see it, is that Downing Street has let the cat out of the bag, that they might try another vote if they lose this one. And in a sense, that gives a kind of blank slate for MPs to have a protest vote against this deal. And if there's huge numbers who do vote against the deal, then it might be quite difficult, actually, for Theresa May to be able to turn it around, have another vote and get it over the line that way, coupled with the fact that the EU is unlikely to change the withdrawal agreement very much. Then I don't think we should be super confident that she will get it through a second time.
And then what happens? Are we talking about a no-deal Brexit? Are we talking about an election? Are we talking about maybe another referendum?
Well, I think there's obviously chaos politically. My sense is that a no-deal will be quite hard to do. It is the default option. I mean, you know, if nothing happens by March 29th, then we will leave with no deal. But Parliament doesn't want no deal. The EU don't really want no deal.
You say Parliament doesn't want no deal, and yet at the same time we're saying most MPs are preparing to vote against the deal.
They are, and so Parliament has to do something. What can Parliament do? Well, I mean, they could vote for it the second time, or they could say, we demand that you go back and renegotiate. That might buy a bit of time.
Which the EU have said they won't do.
The EU have said no. And if Parliament then votes against it a second time, then obviously a second referendum might be back on the table. Theresa May's job might be in jeopardy. So then all options are open. It could well be no deal, or it could be that we end up with a second referendum, I think.
Even if there is a deal passed here in Parliament, we've been hearing from the French, for example, that when they're negotiating the longer-term trade relationship with Britain, they might want to talk about fishing rights before lifting the backstop on the Irish border question. So all sorts of people are getting a little bit worried about the future relationship with Europe and also the Spanish on Gibraltar and so on. And we're starting to see signs that individual EU countries might flex their muscles.
Yes, I think that's right. It's been an interesting few days with the French, particularly on level playing field issues, you know, social and employment rights and environmental law, with the Spanish over Gibraltar. And what will happen with the future relationship is we'll enter a usual trade negotiation. And generally what happens with the EU's trade negotiations is all of the countries want a little bit for their exporting sectors, their specialist sectors, which means that it's a very difficult job to corral them all together into an individual line.
Good to talk to you. Thank you very much for being with us with your thoughts and insights. John Springford from the Centre for European Reform. Just to say that at 2:30 this afternoon, we're going to be trying to get you some answers to your questions about the latest Brexit developments. We've got a panel of experts. So if you do have a question for us, just get in touch. You can text 61124. You can email askthis@bbc.co.uk, or you can tweet us using the hashtag #BBCAskThis. That statement, we think, from the Prime Minister in the Commons on her Brexit deal at 3:30 this afternoon. So much more from us throughout the day, but for the moment from Westminster, back to you, Rachel.
Ben, thanks very much indeed. The Ukrainian Parliament, the UN Security Council and NATO ambassadors are all holding emergency meetings today in response to Russia's seizure of 3 Ukrainian Navy vessels in the Kerch Strait. Ukraine's president has described the seizure as an act of aggression. Russian special forces opened fire and took control of 2 gunboats and a tugboat as they tried to pass through the Kerch Strait off the coast of Crimea. Both NATO and the EU have called for restraint and for Ukraine's access to the waters to be restored. Well, this is the moment one Russian naval ship appeared to ram a smaller Ukrainian tugboat. Steve Rosenberg has sent us this report.
Off the coast of Crimea, Russian border guards on collision course with the Ukrainian Navy. Here, the Russians target a Ukrainian tugboat. The hint is less than subtle. Get out of these waters. There was more drama to come. Later, Russian forces shot at and seized the tug and 2 other Ukrainian vessels. This appears to be an SOS from one of the Ukrainian sailors as the Russians storm his boat. A Russian replies. The Ukrainian vessels were towed to Russian-controlled Crimea. More than 20 Ukrainian servicemen have been detained. The incident took place near the Crimean Peninsula by the Kerch Strait. Russia says Ukraine's navy illegally entered Russian waters. Ukraine denies it. This was the reaction in Kiev. Death to Russia, he shouts. Protests and pyrotechnics outside the Russian embassy. Ukraine's president denounced what he called Russia's aggression. Petro Poroshenko will ask Parliament to approve martial law to defend Ukraine against Russia. Moscow is refusing to take the blame. Russia's foreign minister accused Kiev of provocations. Sergei Lavrov said Ukraine's leaders were trying to score political points ahead of elections. And with its show of force yesterday at sea and in the sky over the Kerch Strait, Russia has sent a clear message to Ukraine. Don't mess with Russia. Steve Rosenberg, BBC News, Moscow.
Just want to bring you an update on the story we've been covering through the morning concerning the case of Matthew Hedges in the UAE. We were hearing that he had been pardoned, of course, of those spying charges, and we had been told that he had already been released. Just to clarify, there seems to be some confusion about this because Matthew Hedges' family saying he has not yet been released. We believe the pardon is still intact, but in terms of his actual whereabouts, it's not quite clear whether he has formally been released from prison. A spokeswoman for his wife, Daniela Tejada, saying he has not been released. So we're trying to get a little bit more information about that. There's no suggestion at this stage that this is anything more than a hold-up, just in the logistics, but just wanted to clarify that actually the suggestion that he's already out of prison may not be correct. We will keep you updated on that. Now, in its first major update on climate change in almost 10 years, the Met Office has warned of significant temperature rises in the decades ahead. The UK Climate Projections 2018 study is the most up-to-date assessment of how the UK will change over this century. It says that under the highest emissions scenario, summer temperatures could be 5.4 Celsius hotter by 2070. A little earlier, the Environment Secretary, Michael Gove, warned that urgent action is needed to tackle climate change and prepare for future extreme weather. Let's just have a listen to some of what he had to say.
Scientific knowledge is always, I believe, a good in itself. And in that sense, there can never be too much information. The more we know, the greater our ability to shape events for the better, but also the heavier the responsibility to act. When it comes to climate change, we now, thanks to the efforts of the UK scientists, know more than ever before the urgency of acting, which is why not just I, but future generations are so much in the debt of the scientists who work for a better future.
Michael Gove there talking about climate predictions for the future. Let's look a little bit less far in advance. We can get the weather from Chris Fawkes, who's across the newsroom with the details. Hi there.
Hi Rachel, thanks a lot. Yes, well, we're still into fairly cool air at the moment. However, we are going to see some changes to our weather over the next few days. Eventually it turns wetter, windier and much milder, but for the time being, showers continue to feed in across eastern coastal areas of Scotland and England, and with not a great deal of wind to push those showers in, that's where the showers will stay really through the rest of the day. Away from those eastern coastal areas though, a lot of dry weather, a few sunny spells around, temperatures between 6 and 8 degrees for most, and then during this evening and overnight the showers could turn heavier for a time in eastern Scotland. Might see a bit of snow on the hills for a time here with things turning slippery. Otherwise a chilly night, temperatures low single figures, but where we see cloud breaks for any length of time, there is the potential of getting some patches of frost. Changes afoot towards the southwest. Here we see some rain working in for Tuesday. That will then spread to Wales and Northern Ireland. Notice the winds moving into a southwesterly direction. That's going to be dragging in some milder air. So temperatures through tomorrow afternoon up to 12 degrees in Plymouth. But ahead of our weather front, we're still into the same chilly air as today. So it will feel similar to today. A few showers across the northeast of Scotland. That's your latest weather.
Hello, you're watching BBC Newsroom Live with me, Rachel Schofield. Here are our headlines. Matthew Hedges, the British academic jailed for spying in the United Arab Emirates, has been given a presidential pardon.
We've made it very clear for a number of months now that we see no basis in these allegations. They've reflected on that. They've taken the action that they can, which means that Matthew Hedges is going to be reunited with his family.
Theresa May meets her cabinet ministers as she begins a campaign to sell her Brexit deal to Parliament. But a difficult task awaits, as politicians on all sides say they won't support it. NATO and the UN are both to hold emergency meetings as tensions escalate between Russia and Ukraine after Russia seized 3 Ukrainian ships in the Azov Sea. Bernardo Bertolucci, the Oscar-winning director of Last Tango in Paris and The Last Emperor, has died of cancer, aged 77. OK, let's get straight back to Brexit. We can rejoin Ben, who's live at Westminster for us this morning. Hi, Ben.
Indeed. Well, Theresa May has been chairing a meeting of her cabinet to talk about how to sell her Brexit deal ahead of the vote in Parliament on the deal expected on December the 12th. And this afternoon she'll be making a statement to MPs as well. Let's discuss all of that now with Katie Balls from The Spectator and Jack Blanchard from Politico. Thanks both of you for being with us. Katie, how do you see it going on December the 12th? Is there any way she can get this deal through? Everyone says the maths is against her.
Yeah, I think the unlikely option is that she gets this through, and right now the numbers just don't add up. I think the big problem for number 10 is because it looks like Theresa May is so far off, because it looks like she is going to lose this vote quite substantially, those MPs who maybe could be convinced to help get it over the line think, what is the point in me attaching myself to a very unpopular policy if it's not going to pass anyway? And I think that's the problem. The mood is not good when it comes to changing opinion.
Jack, are there some MPs, do you think, who are waverers, who are persuadable?
We haven't heard from very many, if there are, and time is obviously running out for the Prime Minister. It's only just over 2 weeks away. I think Katie says that there seems to be a sort of critical mass in Parliament that's moving towards voting down the deal. What number 10 would have hoped was that when that deal was done at the big summit yesterday, that was supposed to be a catalyst, a moment when MPs start moving towards it. There's a sort of momentum towards let's get this deal done. We haven't had any sense of that at all, and there isn't really very long for Theresa May to try and create that.
There seems to be a sort of thought that they'll vote down the deal and then maybe have another vote on the deal at a later stage. Just explain how that might work, Katie.
Yeah, so we're thinking at least 2 votes. So the idea is the first time it's voted down, I think number 10 probably are accounting for that to happen. Then you give it a little bit of time, panic might set in, the markets might go, and there is a calculation that then some MPs would think, actually this time around I will vote for this. It's not a foolproof strategy, and I think what gets worse for it, maybe it's an understatement, is if the margin is quite large in this deal being voted down, it makes it much harder for Theresa May to make the argument that if she brings it a second time to the House it might happen. So I think this only works, and even then it might not work if it is a small number it's voted down by, and all the figures so far suggest that's not going to be the case.
And it's interesting to say as well that the very day after this big vote on the 12th, or we think it's going to be the 12th, there's another EU Council summit in Brussels, so Theresa May will be off to Brussels the next day, win or lose. Now if I was her, I would be going there saying, if I do lose, maybe we need to talk a little bit more about this deal, and could we try and tweak it a little bit. Now the EU is saying very much, no, that's it, that's it. I suspect that they might have another look at that.
Do you think they're bluffing?
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I do think that you could maybe tweak it around the edges a little bit. The political declaration, which is not a binding document, isn't very long, isn't nearly as complicated as the treaty. You could probably tweak that around the edges and come back, make some cosmetic changes maybe, and come back and say, look, this is different, and try and give MPs a bit of cover to vote differently a second time.
Do you think, Katie, that she's starting on this big sell, as we've been calling it, this campaign to sell the deal, not only to MPs but to the public? Is that the right strategy? I think she thinks if she can persuade members of the public to back it, they will try and persuade their MPs.
Yeah, it feels a bit like a general election campaign, the way number 10 are going about this. And I think it's maybe because they've realised for months, years of trying to do this, the MPs are actually getting very hard to change the minds of. But I think the slight flaw to the strategy is number 10 seem to be saying everyone's so bored of Brexit, just vote this through, everyone wants it over, yet Theresa May is going around trying to tell the people who are bored of Brexit to be enthusiastic about her deal to the point they lobby their MPs. That doesn't quite add up.
There's also some speculation today, Jack, about maybe a head-to-head debate, Theresa May against Jeremy Corbyn. Do you see that happening?
Well, it would certainly I think you could see why Number 10 might want to do it, because they need something to change the dynamic of this. They just need something to change the conversation, and that would be a big TV moment. The Sunday night before, before this big vote, watching them go head to head. You hardly ever see the leaders do that. Famously, Theresa May wasn't so keen to do that as you might have expected her to during the election campaign. It's a sign of how desperate they are in Downing Street to change that. Jeremy Corbyn says he is well up for it. So yeah, it's definitely possible, but we haven't had any confirmation yet.
Everything you've been saying suggests we could be heading towards the cliff edge, the no-deal Brexit. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I think at the moment we are heading to the point that things get very uncertain, and then all bets are off, and things that look unlikely, like a second referendum, like a general election, like a Norway for now, EEA temporary membership, they all start to look more likely. And the problem with this debate is the fact that this isn't a party issue really, it's cross-party. So unless Theresa May wants to debate Boris Johnson and then chuck her and Minna and everyone else, I don't see what that debate is going to resolve in fixing this.
Jack, there aren't many times in politics when the experts and the public really have no idea how things are going to turn out. We could have an election, we could have another referendum, we could have a no-deal Brexit. There are possibilities and no one can really predict it.
Totally right, and everywhere you go in Westminster this last week or two, everyone is having this same conversation, trying to game out what is going to happen if and when this vote is lost. Nobody's got an answer. Yeah, everyone's got an idea, and then you think it through and go, yeah, but maybe it can't really because of this and because of that. None of them seem like easy options at all. And if anyone tells you, comes up here in the next few days and says they know what's going to happen, they are lying to you.
You tell us, what's your best guess?
My instinct has always been that when Parliament is this deadlocked, then we have a general election at some point, because the problem here is that Parliament can't agree anything. None of the options are acceptable to a majority of MPs, and therefore, to my mind, you need a general election. The response to that, of course, is that we now have a Fixed-Term Parliament Act, and that's quite complicated. But if I had to put my money somewhere, I think in the end that's what has to happen.
Is that how you see it, Katie?
I think what's interesting, speaking to Brexiteers in recent days, actually the prospect of a second referendum is beginning to look more appealing, because the problem with a general election is Labour are divided, the Conservatives are divided. What on earth would be in the Conservative manifesto?
All the
people are divided as well.
Exactly. So a referendum is something that I think some Brexiteers are thinking, actually, maybe this is the only way we'll get a proper Brexit now, is by going back and winning that vote again.
All right, both of you, thank you so much, Katie Balls and Jack Blanchard. We will see. Much more from me later on. We have that statement from the Prime Minister to MPs on her Brexit deal a little later this afternoon. But for now, back to you in the studio, Rachel.
Ben, thanks very much. Well, let's return to the news that Matthew Hedges, the British academic who was jailed for life on spying charges in the UAE, has been given a presidential pardon. Some uncertainty as to whether he has been released yet, though. Here's how the UAE government made the announcement earlier this morning.
All countries react strongly to the act of spying, as they should. We reserve the right to protect our country from any external threat. The sentence that has been handed down to Mr. Hedges is fair, considering the crime he committed. Having said that, in a world of mounting threats, we recognize just how important it is for like-minded countries to work with rather than against one another. This belief in working together was embodied by our founding father, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan. May God Almighty rest his soul in peace. And we still follow the path today. Continuing our traditions established by His Highness Sheikh Zayed, and as part of our National Day celebration, the President of the UAE, His Highness Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, may God bless him, yesterday has granted gracious clemency to 785 prisoners across the UAE to mark the 47th